Crest Line Mercy, the night the river borrowed our tracks. The river took a breath, the dispatcher went quiet, and a voice on a marine handheld, one I didn't know yet, said my name like a levy. Noah, do not take the lake route. Bring them to the lock wall. Now, my name is Noah Delacroix, 28, Amtrak assistant conductor based out of New Orleans Union Passenger Terminal. My office is a vestibule that smells like wet coats and coffee. My job a choreography of tickets, doors, radios, and making strangers into passengers who feel like they belong for exactly the length of a timetable. I was born in the lower 9 and raised on streetcars and hurricane pantry math. From the platform on a quiet night, I can hear the river turning over like a giant deciding which side to sleep on. On the day it happened, the Carrollton Gauge said the Mississippi was high and proud. The Corps said don't blink, and the dispatcher said hold your slot or lose it. Our train, the Crescent, inbound from Atlanta, should have been a kiss and done at 7:32 p.m. Instead, a stalled freight blocked backbelt east of Metairie. And then a barge breakaway near Algiers Point started the kind of chain reaction dominoes don't warn you about. My conductor, Ms. Robichaud, had the calm of a woman who has waltzed with delays and never once stepped on a toe. She handed me a portable VHF we kept for terminal moves and said, "Keep an ear on 13. When the river coughs, the city listens." Passengers asked the usual questions with unusual eyes. Will I make my connection? Will there be cabs? Can I smoke? No, maybe. Still no. I smiled the kind of smile we're trained to mean and frowned the kind I keep for myself. The sky over the river wore bruised purple. Thunder muttered from Gretna like someone practicing a speech. The rails hummed a busy, then a waiting, then nothing. That's when the voice on 13 said my name like it had known it for longer than a minute. Noah. This is Eli at IHNC lock. I've got USCG asking us to stage an overflow bus at the lock wall for a river closure. Do not run the lakefront shuttle. The Seabrook bridge is taking lulls only. Bring your passengers up Galfour to the wall. We'll take them through landside to Claiborne buses. It took my brain a second to stack those sentences. Copy, I said, defaulting to good radio manners while my heart flipped from freight delay to flood chess. I'm Noah with the Crescent. We're stuck at South Carrollton interlocking with a dead block ahead. You want us to stage at the Industrial Canal lock? Affirmative, he said. I'm Eli Morales, lockmaster. I've got room, light, and dry concrete. And you sound like you know what those words mean. He had a voice like boat rope. Worked. Reliable. The kind that holds if you grip it right. Robichaud, I said to my boss. Covering the mic, IHNC wants to play host. Buses on Claiborne. We walk the folks past the GNO miracle and pretend we planned it. She blinked once, her version of hell yes, and said, Your lead on the walk, Mr. Delacroix. Make them feel like a parade. But the truly shocking part hadn't happened yet. We platformed at a makeshift spot near Pontchartrain Expressway, a place that looked like a dare. I opened the trap, rolled out the portable step, and switched my voice to parade marshal. Friends, welcome to New Orleans. Tonight's arrival is a little different. We have buses waiting just 2 blocks away at the lock, and the walk is flat, lit, and escorted. If you're carrying heavy luggage or traveling with mobility needs, please come to the front. I've got help and carts. We'll get everybody home. They believed me because the other options were worse. A boy in a Saints hoodie asked if the river could eat the train. I told him no, and let my hand rest on the handrail long enough to turn metal into promise. One lady from Alabama patted my sleeve and said, Baby, you sound like you know. And I said, I do when I have to. We made a little caravan down Galfour, under a sky that couldn't decide between thunder and apology. I counted heads like a miser. Ms. Robichaud flanked us like a general who has decided morale is a kind of weapon. Harbor police blocked a turn with the soft authority local cruisers wear. The lock loomed ahead, big concrete, Art Deco bones under all the practical, and the wall was warm with sodium light. A man in a hard hat and float coat stood on the wall with a clipboard tucked under one arm and a radio in his hand like a conductor holding a baton. Eli up. Close, he looked early 30s. Puerto Rican by the edges of his vowels, hair buzzed short for helmets, beard stubble shaped by indifference rather than trend. The badge on his coat read Morales. The look in his eyes read counting. Welcome, he said to the crowd like a maitre d' who happens to be made of concrete. We're making a transfer right along this wall. Keep your toes behind the yellow line, because that's the line that likes you alive. Buses are waiting just over the pedestrian bridge. You'll be in air conditioning before my coffee knows I left. The crowd laughed in the relieved way that turns men into bridges. He looked at me and switched to a voice that belonged to one person. You good? I keep being, I said. and his mouth did a left-corner smile like he was checking a box he'd hoped to check. He offered me a paper cup. The steam smelled like café con leche and forgiveness. Contraband, he said. If anyone asks, it's safety equipment. We moved the passengers in clumps, porters improvising with baggage dollies, teenagers pushing strollers like they'd practiced. A tourist pointed at the floodgate murals and said they looked like prayers, and I didn't argue. The river was a shoulder right there, big and patient, wanting only what big things want, attention and a little room. Morales, a voice crackled on his radio. USCG reports barge string secured at Algiers. Crescent City connection stays open. Almonaster rail bridge holding. Lock stays closed to vessels. Give the train people your sidewalk. Copy, he said. Then to me, softer. The lake is doing SACE tonight. Up, down, up. Seabrook is playing prima donna. If you'd gone that way, we'd still be counting your shoes. You just saved me a speech with the boss, I said, and a wrecked trolley of Samsonites. He tilted his head toward the industrial horizon. You local? Born and stayed, I said. Why leave the only city that lets music outrun the weather? Same, he said. Just different island. Wait, don't miss this detail. We got the last of the passengers across the footbridge to the bus loop, where RTA drivers handed out schedules like communion. Ms. Robichaud signed something on Eli's clipboard without breaking stride. My shoulders started to remember they weren't made of rebar. That's when a harbor police officer hustled down the wall, breath white against the humidity like he'd taught himself a new trick. Lock, he said. We've got a minivan stalled halfway up the Claiborne ramp. Water from a blocked drain. Kid in the back with meds that need cold. Ambulance is on the way but stuck at a rail gate by Press Street. Can you get a gator cart up there? Eli's radio hand twitched with the muscle memory of yes. He looked at me like a man checking whether a sentence he hadn't spoken would survive air. I can run, I said before he asked. He nodded once. We've got a cooler here. Ice packs. You take it. I'll take the cart. We meet at the ramp. We don't put anybody in the cart unless we have to. Rules. I like rules, I said. I like bending them even more. Not tonight, he said. But his left corner smile came back. Tonight we talk the universe into compliance. We jogged the spine of the lock and then up toward the ramp, my lungs negotiating with my legs for better terms. A silver minivan sat cockeyed against a curb, hazards timid in the glow. Inside, a boy about 9 looked pale and too quiet. His mother clutched a cool bag like a talisman. I'm Noah, I said, kneeling so my grin lined up with his gaze. This is Eli. We brought ice and a way to make grown-ups reasonable. The mom laughed in that way where the laugh is mostly relief. His insulin got warm, she said, voice steady because she decided to be steady. We had spares at room temp, but we were stuck. Eli handed me the cooler. I swapped packs like I'd done it in a past life. He took the boy's pulse with a kind of gentle competence that didn't pretend to be medicine, but was human. Harbor police flagged traffic like Moses might if he'd had a reflective vest. In 2 minutes that lasted 10. The ambulance arrived and took over with thank yous and clipboards. You're good at this, I said to Eli when the red lights turned from urgent to decorative. Locks teach you patience, he said. The city teaches you improvisation. And you, I said, teach me that coffee can be PPE. He laughed for real then, head tipped back, throat bare to the humid sky like a man who trusts the ceiling to stay put. It did something to me I hadn't planned for tonight. I thought the emergency ended with the bus. But the river hadn't told us the last part of its plan. We were almost back to the wall when thunder finally decided it wanted the microphone. Rain came medium, then sudden, then sideways. Eli pulled me under a steel overhang, the ancient kind meant to keep men and their clipboards from turning into paperwork. He shook his head like a dog and looked at me like an auditor verifying I still occupied my body. You okay? He asked. Not are you fine, which means nothing, but are you here? I keep being, I said, surprised at how quickly the night had made that our ritual. Good, he said. He didn't move his hand off my forearm right away. He rested it there, glove damp, weight light. It wasn't a grab. It was a claimless claim. You are not alone. Lock, the radio said. Barge reports loose trash boom by the north gate. We're still closed to traffic. Debris is pressing. If we lose that corner, street water could pour into the yard. Need hands. We're hands, Eli said to the air and then to me. You coming? I don't do water, I said, not entirely joking. You do people, he said. Same thing. Grab that pike pole. The trash boom looked like a bracelet around some god's wrist. Logs, plastic, drift, a maybe gator rumor, no, not here. All pressing at the corner where the canal cheated around the floodgate. Water slopped eager, wanting to write a new map. The USACE text did calm in rubber boots. Eli waded to his shins, pike pole out like a third arm, and talked to the debris as if it owed him money. We levered the largest log off the angle, a team of 4 on the pole like a tug of war with a wet bully. The pressure eased, the water sighed into remaining exactly what it was, and New Orleans got to keep the street grid it had drawn this morning. "That corner is ours," Eli said, not bragging. "For tonight." "Amen," I said, not religious. My phone buzzed. "Ms. Robichaud. Reseat at UPT in 20. Can you lead the walk back?" I looked at Eli. I had the answer. I didn't want to say it yet. We walked the last dozen passengers back over the footbridge, past murals and caution tape and the part of my brain that insists we're one mistake away from becoming a newspaper article. The buses departed. The wall went quiet. The rain tempered down to useful. Eli and I stood by the lock control house, both holding cups neither of us remembered getting refilled. "So," he said, casual like a man approaching a dog on a porch, "after you reseat and count your souls, you could swing back by. We keep the north gate lit until USCG says go to bed. I could use someone to share the last bad coffee with." "You asking me on a date with chaperones and concrete?" I said. "I'm asking if you want to see a control panel that still thinks it's 1975, he said. "And maybe tell me why your radio voice drops half an octave when you say now." "Maybe," I said, pretending to weigh options the way I pretend to weigh dessert. "If the city lets us." "It will," he said, confident like a man who has negotiated with worse. But the most shocking part hadn't happened yet. UPT at night is elegance wearing work boots. The station swallowed our train like a museum piece that still does its job. We counted passengers twice for superstition. The custodian near Gate B said he liked my hat, and that the Pelicans need a better bench. Ms. Robichaud clapped my shoulder with affection disguised as HR compliance. "Go write your river a thank you note," she said. When I walked back to the lock, the air had switched from panic to policy. The north gate hummed its low transformer song. Eli stood with his back to me, shoulders squared like a man manning a station, hands loose at his sides like a boy at a parade. He turned. His eyes had shifted to after, that softer focus grown-ups get when the adrenaline checks out and leaves exact change. "You came back," he said, as if that were a choice people sometimes make in the other direction. "Had to see your 1975, I said. He showed me the panels, toggle switches that felt like airplane nostalgia, analog gauges that did honest wobble. He told a quick story about a pelican who once insisted the wall was hers, and another about a tourist who tried to kayak the lock like it was a ride. I told him about a man who thought the dining car was all you can drink and a kid who assumed conductors get to drive. We leaned on opposite sides of the same console like bookends. "You okay?" he asked, softer now. Ritual turned prayer. "I keep being," I said. "You?" he nodded. "Me too. We didn't kiss. New Orleans is a city for kisses, but also a city for foreheads. We did that, one beat, under the control house light that has tried and failed to hum itself to death since I was a child. It was not performative. It was inventory. 2 men, 1 night, a river that got to keep itself. 2 days later, Port NOLA posted a safety recap. Barge securement, lock closures, river stage gifts. The last slide was a still captured from a CCTV camera at the IHNC control house, grainy, honest, tipped slightly low. In the left third, 2 small figures on the shadow edge. A man in a float coat, a man in an Amtrak cap, foreheads inclined like they were listening to the same music. The caption read, "Small, honest, enough." Eli texted me the thread, and after a pause long enough to qualify as a decision. "Dinner?" "Always," I wrote. "Good," he said. "Because I am. We ate red beans on a Monday like the city told us to. My mother sent him home with beignets and an opinion about flood walls. We didn't make a schedule. We made a ritual. When the river rises, we text here. When the dispatch goes quiet, we text me too. He keeps a spare handheld in my locker. I keep a pocket spiral in his coat, because love, like locks, runs better when someone writes things down. Sometimes the safest place isn't a dry street or a high bridge. Sometimes it's the 1-inch distance between 2 foreheads under a humming light, while the river takes a breath and decides, mercifully, to give it back. I'm here, I say when the gauge climbs. Me too, he says. And New Orleans, stubborn, musical, soaked in better stories. Lets us try again.